Good evening, Arjun. Good evening, Devi. Good evening, Anand.
Renjit?
Yeah, Amrit. Just give me a minute, Amrit.
Yeah, sure. I'm just hearing a few noises. I'm not sure what that is, so just wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Is it people joining that ting ting music?
No, I think we already have like 30. So yeah, I think 2 more minutes and we can start, Amrit.
Sure, whenever.
Yeah. Thank you. Ashik. Ashik.
Sir.
Ashik, I hope you got the link.
Yeah, I got the link, sir.
Okay. Hari.
Yes, sir.
I hope you got the link.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that sound is the joining, people joining.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm sending it now. I'm sending it now.
Okay. Super.
Yeah, I'm sending it now.
Super.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Amrit. Yes.
Okay.
Ashik,
Yes, sir.
can you see the full PPT?
No, sir.
Okay,
Great.
Amrit, could you just close the screen and start sharing it again?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it because of the split screen that it's not coming up correctly?
Yeah, I think I had to close mine, I guess.
Okay, give me a second. I'll just do that again. If it doesn't work, I'll maybe move to another screen.
Sure.
Yes.
Is that coming up right now, or is it not accurate?
No, it's the same.
Same.
Okay, give me a second. Just tell me if this worked.
Okay. I think.
Does that make it any better?
Yeah, no, it's pretty much the same.
I'm just going to do that again. I've just made that into a different page altogether now, so maybe that's going to make a difference. Johnny. Does this show up better?
No, it's the same.
What's going on? I can't really understand.
Okay, just close the screen, Amrita. Let me just give it a shot from my end.
You mean, should I stop sharing?
Yeah, just stop sharing. I'll just try this at my end. You can see the full screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's working from my end. Okay, let me just close it. Can you try again from your end now?
Sure.
Yeah. It's the same.
What is happening?
I don't know. I mean, this is the first time that I'm seeing something like this.
No, but what is that you guys are seeing so that I can just debug?
No, just the half the screen.
You're only seeing half the screen?
Yeah,
Okay, give me a second.
sure.
Tell me if that fixes the issue.
Something to do with the ratio, I guess. Yeah, now it is. I can see your name now. Again, it has
Is
gone.
something there?
Yeah, I think the screen is getting skewed, Amrit.
Okay, 1 second. Okay. This was same thing that we did in the afternoon, so I don't know.
Afternoon, it was working fine.
Okay. What about now? Just let's see this.
It's the same. Amrit, do you want to just send this PPT to my mail? I can give it a shot from my end.
Just give me 1 sec.
Sure.
I'll just try one more last thing, and then if it doesn't
sure.
work, switch over.
Sure.
I'm gonna switch off this right now.
Okay.
I'm gonna go out of the meeting, and I'll come back in.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes, Amrit. It's working now. Yeah.
Perfect. Cool.
Okay, great. I think we can start. I guess it's almost 4:35.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, sure. So, okay. Participants upon entry.
You're able to hear me?
Yes, Amrit. Just give me a minute, Amrit.
Sure.
Okay. All right. I think we can start. All right. So, good evening, everyone. Sorry for the delayed start. We were supposed to start at 4:30, but we just wanted to ensure that we have all the people coming in. So right now we have around 37 people who are part of the event. We have more people coming in. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking out your time and your data on a Sunday evening. This is the third episode of IceQ Rhapsody. So every week we are introducing something or the other which we believe will add value to a student's campus life, which will go on to add furthermore value to build a great career. And if there is one particular question that I've always confronted from lots of students, during my workshops, they have kept on asking me this question, sir, how is it that you can go ahead and work with unicorns, companies like Apple or Google or Facebook, So I've heard this question from so many students, and so since I'm a motivational speaker, I can only motivate them saying that this is possible for everyone. But I don't know how to, I don't know to guide them in terms of how they can probably carve their path. Uh, I remember Steve Jobs saying this once, that you can only hire those people who, managers. You can only hire those managers who will manage people, but those managers need to tell them how to do their job as well. So if you want to say that, it is important that you know what they do. And luckily, Amrit was the only person whom I know from Google, because I remember meeting up with Amrit during one of the events organized by Google Tech Makers last year, where he was one of the keynote speakers of the event, and I was a speaker towards the end of the day, adding some entertainment for everybody. But it was actually Amrit, who came down and who spoke to the students and the professionals, representing what the ethos of Google is all about. And we they had some rave reviews about his session. So the first person who came to my mind when we were thinking in terms of what should be the next level for IceQ Rhapsody after both the LinkedIn series that we did, and I thought probably Amrit is the right person. I reached out to him, and Amrit was magnanimous enough to accommodate my request. He was more than happy, and so he said, let's do it. And so then we had a discussion in terms of what should be the content of the session. So it is 1 hour. So what should be the content of the session? And we casually started having a chat. And so I still don't know what exactly Amrit does at Google. But when we had that chat with him, and I don't think I'll even understand, even if he tries to explain. Maybe he was very sensible not to explain that to me, apart from the fact that he just explained the entire journey. And we had a 30 minutes conversation on an evening where we wanted to explore what should be the content. And during the conversation, I realized that he has a fascinating story for everybody, for every one of you here. He graduated from CUSAT. He studied in Trivandrum, I presume. Am I right, Amrit? Your school?
Yes, I started doing. Yeah.
Yeah. He did his schooling in Trivandrum, so I'm also from Trivandrum, so there is some Trivandrum loyalty there. And he went to Kochi, CUSAT, did his engineering there, and then he said he started off very simple, very basic, just like anybody else. I have trained more than 150,000 engineers in my career, and he was just like one of them. But what was the differentiator, which actually helped Amrit land up in Google in 10 years, which others couldn't. They couldn't, because I know my students from CET or maybe NIT, Calicut, IIT, making it really big in these years. I haven't I haven't heard many stories about people starting off as a small time underdog, making it big with companies like Google and Facebook. So we had very few conversations regarding this, and then he spoke about why he always wanted to specialize in technical platforms, why he never aspired to restrict themselves only into managerial positions or senior management cadre positions. Why he wanted to remain as a technical person. He spoke about that, and he spoke about why specialization is extremely important for somebody to grow up the rungs of the ladder. If you really want to reach the top, if you want to probably reach those unicorn companies and have an access, why specialization is very important. So he spoke about specialization. He spoke about why he wanted to remain as a technical person. And the most fascinating piece of conversation that we had was towards the end, where he said that I want my value to remain the same even if there is no Google to my profile. And I quite liked that. I had a lot of respect for him, but that respect went two notches above the moment he said that even if there is no Google on my profile, Ranjit, I want people to respect me as Amrit Sanjeev. And that is what I'm aspiring for. Uh, then I thought, this is what I want Amrit to come and talk to the kids. It's a perfect blend of, as we say, motivation, uh, inculcate a bit of technical expertise, guidance, his know-how about the industry. And I think we would probably have one of the best IceQ Rhapsody sessions, this year. So welcome, Amrit. Welcome to IceQ Learning. Thanks for accepting our invitation. I really hope that you have a great time with all the kids out here. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks for the opportunity, Renjit. He set me up for big expectations. Now I am forced to deliver. So yeah, today I just wanted to kind of run through some of the things that helped me, my journey in my career. A few things that helped me, a few things I feel will help a lot of people if they aspire to take a technical track line or join one of these big companies later in their career. So this is nothing prescriptive. I'm just telling you things that I feel have helped me. There are things that might work for you, might not work for you. So you got to take it with a pinch of salt. These are things that worked for me. So listen to this. If there are things that you can take back and use it in your career, feel free to. If there are questions, feel free to ask me in between or towards the end of the session. Either ways, whichever is comfortable. If I'm too fast, please let me know on the chat. I would be watching that also in the in between so that we don't lose track of things. Okay, I'll quickly start off. I have it's about a 25 slide presentation that I've made. That'll just quickly let's run through that, and then we'll have more of an interactive session uh, towards the end, and that I think will be more value than just the session. So quickly moving to the deck. So people know me for different things. Some people know me as a coder who spends all night coding. Then that is true. I don't sleep a lot. I tend to write a lot of code late in the evening, late at night. And I do code a lot. This is like not because I want to look technical or not because I just like that part of work. My job profile today doesn't require me to do it, but I still like it. So some people say have a hobby, right? So for me, the hobby is mostly writing and figuring out new things and then sharing it with others. So that's for some people know me for that. Some people know me for being working at Google. So yes, there is a brand value there. But like told Renjit earlier, I want to be somebody who really, I'm somebody who really considers the value, my value to be what without the tag is there, without Google's tag is there. What is my value? What people perceive is what I perceive as my value. Other things people know me is I'm very, very prolific in the community part of things. I started something called as GDG Bangalore or GDG BLR Droid, which later became one of the biggest open source communities, open Android communities actually. And we were featured in Stack Overflow reports and multiple places. So that also grew. It's still one of the largest in India. It's the largest Android community in India right now. I think from 2000. 10 to now, it's been the largest one. Some people know me as a Google developer expert. I was the first guy who got the developer expert title from India for Android and 7th globally. So that was another achievement some people know me for. I was an Intel accelerator. So there are a few things people know me for different things. I love cars. I'm a total petrol head like most Mallus. I used to race cars as a privateer at drag strips. So that is another thing. I took my passions to a little more extreme rather than just reading and watching YouTube. I was actually building race cars and playing around with Danger a little bit in early, maybe way back in 2010, 11. I used to. I had a Zen at that time, which was completely rebuilt to be a drag car. Now I'm building an Abarth Punto. So yeah, there are things about me which different people see me as a different person. So I feel not anybody, I mean, one person does not have the same opinion about people, right? So I wanted to touch upon some of these different aspects. I just don't want to be put into this one container called, oh, the tech guy. No, I'm not just that. I am a little more than that, in my opinion. So this must be what everybody wants to know about. How do I land a job at Google? So I'm going to keep this enthusiasm as it is. I'll talk a little more about yeah, this is important for many of you. I will talk about this a little towards the end of my session, but I think what people should mostly look at or think about right now is what is that you want to learn, and how deep should you go about it? Should I keep switching technologies? Should I be a generalist or a specialist in one thing? Should I speak more at conferences, which I think a lot of people today really feel like it's necessary as being an engineer. Really need to be out there and putting your thoughts across. I have some opinions about that too. But I think these are the things that a lot of you should focus rather than focus on just one company or Facebook or Google or Microsoft. Opportunities are plenty out here, not just in these companies. Opportunities are plenty everywhere. So once you build your skill set, it is easier for you to grab those opportunity and then go on a what is an accelerated career path. So we'll talk about a few things that worked for me. Okay, these are some of the top things that I feel. Some of them intentionally done, but then it all worked together for me. And I'm not saying that this is exactly what you should be doing, but definitely I am very sure in my career some of these things that I did actually has helped. uh, One is, this is something when I was in IBM, somebody taught me, and I really stuck to this throughout my career. Was a T model of learning. This is not something I invented or anything. It is a way of learning technology, why a technology or a field while you are working, and and it struck to me to be something that was very logical when it was taught, and I've done that throughout my career and continue to do this. So I always find one area where I have very deep technical expertise, so I try to build that technical expertise on one area very strongly at any point in my career. But at the same time, from a horizontal perspective, that's for the vertical side of things, and the horizontal perspective is when you really have an understanding of things around it. So my initially when I joined in IBM as a kernel engineer which was the kernel development was what I started off with. Uh, and At that time, the language specifics was something that I was focusing a lot on. See how kernels were working, how Linux was working. Those sort of things were how to program in that system level programming. Those were the things that I focused a lot on. At the same time, over the first few years, I also picked up other languages, basic enough so that I understand and I could compare and contrast sort of a thing. And one thing that I want to be very specific is that you can't keep one vertical throughout your career. It will keep changing. So from kernel development, I moved to telecommunications backend. Then there it was mostly Java and C++ that was getting used. Then I went back to OS development. When Android came in, I went back to OS development, where it was mostly Java and Java and C++. But at the same time, when I took up mobile as an area of work, I did study iOS also. I did study other platforms which are coming up, Windows platform. It was only enough to compare and contrast sort of an understanding. So this is something I feel very close to, and I feel worked very well for me, where I have very deep understanding of when I focus very deeply on one thing, but at the same time have a broader picture of other things. When you try to be expert in everything, that's where your expertise kind of starts becoming shorter, or it's closer to the average. If you take one area and focus very deeply on it, I feel there is a lot more potential for you to be like an expert at that one. And having a broader understanding helps you compare and contrast, which makes you knowledgeable in terms of conversations. And when you're solving problems, you get ideas, you get lateral ideas. So you get ideas from another OS, or you get ideas from another system which is complementary to what you're learning. So those sort of ideas can be borrowed in, and maybe better solutions can come in. So T model of learning, you could search for this. This is there on internet all around. Nothing new and nothing which is like very new. It is something that people have been following for a very long time, but it's a way of learning which makes it quite structured rather than jumping around technologies and moving things. You can be very clearly defining goals in each of these areas, and then go really at it and become really a rounded professional. Uh, the other one is in terms of calculated risks. I, for one person, have tried many job roles. I've been like early in your career, most of us started at that era. We started as programmers. Then I moved to system designing. I became an architect. I became a lead architect. And at that point, I switched completely, and that was a big job risk that I would call. I switched completely to research, where I became a research engineer for a few years. Then decided research was a little too slow for me in terms of I wanted to move things faster. I took up a staff engineer role where I was directly reporting to CTO in the company, and I was heading their mobile division. Worked on that for a few years, and when I joined Google, incidentally, I joined as a program manager. So I wanted to try out program management, and it was in areas where I liked, which was communities and experts program. These were the two programs that were offered, and they were looking for people to manage that. And I took that and took a program management role. And that's the first time I'm doing program management in say 11-year career. And I've always kept away from, like Renjit was mentioning, I've always kept away from away from management stuff, where I thought that is a distraction for me. I want to go technically very deep, and I took a program manager role. 1 year into it, I realized my love for technology is too much, and I moved back to engineering at Google. So they had to like go through the whole process all over again. Had the all the interviews redone. So it was like Google hired me twice, and they didn't fall back. They didn't really hold back. They were like, it was very rare for managers to go back to engineering. So they were not very skeptical initially, but luckily, God's grace, I also was able to push through and convince them, and then allow them to get me the interviews, and the interviews worked fared well. So back to engineering there. So sometimes trying out different job roles also helps you get a different perspective. Even today, when I'm doing a developer advocate role, I feel my research, the time that I worked in research really helps, because I'm able to analyze problems in a different way. I'm able to start looking at data, and all the data analysis that we did as researchers were actually getting reused here, and that helps. So don't be afraid of taking risk in terms of trying out different things. Don't have this preconceived notion that, oh, all managers are people who don't understand things. Trust me, management is a tricky and tough job. If For those who do it, they know it's not easy. And then the other calculated risk is I've always prioritized long-term success to short-term ones. And
Now connecting
sometimes
with Boat Rockers 400.
sorry, prioritize long-term gains over short-term ones, and that is mostly when wherever I've actually placed a bet on in terms of technology, or a technology, or in terms of a company. I always wanted a longer tenure in companies. IBM I served for about 7 years, 7.5 years before I moved. Then the next companies were all over 3 years, and Google have been here for 6 years now. So I usually spend a lot of longer term tenures in most companies, and that in my at my time when I started working, that was unheard of. Most people the longest people stay in companies for 4 years, and then they get bored and then they move on, find a new job role and move on to it. I've always felt the other way around, and for me that has worked right for me. The other one is I was very prolific in building communities. I used to be part of a Linux user group when I was in college, and that gave me a very clear understanding of how community can help somebody build their expertise a lot. So when I had an opportunity to start a community, we started BL Android in 2009, and it is now grown up to be, like I said, one of the largest open Android development communities. And then we started different communities in different parts of the country. We helped different people start different parts of communities, and there I learned a lot about public speaking skills, leadership without authority, and those sort of skills are very important. And then Renjit would actually agree to this, like your network is a very strong part of your career. Now, I always tell this to people. When I have an engineering problem, I know the people I can call. Because of these communities that I'm part of, I know exactly who I want to I can pick up on my phone and dial somebody and talk to, rather than put the question on Stack Overflow and wait for somebody to answer that later. And that networking actually does help a lot in terms of getting different ideas. It's not just about jobs; it's also about how you solve problems and how you get help. These local connections make a lot of difference. So if you're not part of communities in your respective regions, you should explore that. I feel very strongly that that will help you. Working on side projects. This is another thing that I felt has changed a lot for a lot of my thought process. It gives you an opportunity to put your skills into practice. The side projects that I've been lately working on are all Android projects. I write and put them on Play Store. And then the whole idea is that you get real world feedback. You have an understanding of how good you are, you might have it, but when you put it into practice and when you get your real world feedback, that's when you know the areas that you really need to improve. It also helps you gather a lot of insights and better understanding of users. So as a product guy, this becomes really useful. The understanding of users becomes super useful. And then, like for example, I'm a programmer, right? But I'm forced to work in design, because if it doesn't look good enough, the presentation is not looking good enough, most people don't want to work with your application and give you negative ratings. So it also helps you, it forces you indirectly to work outside of your comfort zone and acquire those skills. And that really does matter, because those extra skills is what's going to separate you out from somebody who's working on programming the same way you are, or working on a skill the same way you are. So yes, do work on side projects. Don't, and when I say side projects, you have to find time for this. And that brings me to the next thing, which uh, is about sharing knowledge. I feel like a lot of people early in their careers feel like their understanding is their differentiator, and they keep their knowledge to themselves. But the whole idea is, unless people know you know things, they don't really consider you knowledgeable. So sharing your insights, sharing. So the reason why I put that slide, which I found instantly, somebody shared this with me. It was fascinating for me to see how the same set of data can be represented differently here. One is data, then it becomes information, then it becomes knowledge, then there is insight, there is wisdom, and also the joke was about conspiracy theory at the end of it. But the thing that I wanted to let people know is, when you're sharing things with others, try to share insights uh, or knowledge rather than data or information, because data and information are very easy to kind of like, it's more like taking from one place and presenting it in a different format to somebody else. But when you're synthesizing that, finding your insights out of it, that makes you stand out. So don't, like, I've seen a lot of speakers lately, and I call this out because a lot of conferences we go to, where we see somebody presenting an idea, they're presenting somebody else's thought process rather than their own, and that doesn't make a person look very knowledgeable on stage. Or if you're right, those insights that you have, even if they are not in line with what everybody else thinks, those are what you should actually present. And I feel very strongly about it. So try and bring your own perspective to things. And once you are considered knowledgeable, the tougher problems come to you. And when the tougher problems come to you, start pushing yourself further. So that's like a cycle which helps you become a lot better over a period of time. And lastly, thing that I worked a lot on in time management. I really did do this out of necessity, to be honest, at a certain point of my time career, because there was so many things to do. I was working full time at IBM. I was also racing on the weekends. I was writing on side projects. So there were too many things to do. And I really think that time management is one skill that everybody, whatever profession you're taking, you really need to work on, because this helps you further in your career, where things are going to be a lot more tougher. There's going to be a lot more work. Unless and until you're able to manage your time really well, it becomes, you can't turn out to be very consistent with your outputs, and that is going to hinder in terms of your growth over a period of time. What I would say, like, I tried out many things for this, to be honest. Some of them did not work. Like, some of the common practices which everybody says works for people did not work for me. So I really had to work out, like, what worked out, how I work better and how I can save time, or I'm productive and things like that. Then I tailored a lot of these things to suit me. So this takes a little more effort than going and reading the 7 steps to better time management sort of articles. That doesn't really help, to be very honest. You really have to try out things, refine the process to suit your working style, and that's when advantage starts coming. And it's a slow process. So if you're not doing it right now, I would strongly suggest you to do it, and really put some time into these things. Uh, Totally, from the fact that this will all be skills that will help you later in your career, where other things will be very important. And if you have the skill, you don't have to worry about acquiring this also in that time. So it helps you save a little bit. So try and do this early in your career. Now, quickly moving on, things that might help you. Okay, I'm going to be quick through this, then we'll have the discussion. Hope that format will work really well for you. One, focus on the fundamentals. And I cannot emphasize more about this, because for Google interview itself, we don't ask you to code an artificial intelligence software or things like that. We ask you the closest fundamentals that are possible. Because the way we think about, or way, when I think just Google, I know the interviews at Google, but I know it's the same with Microsoft or Uber or Facebook. They're only trying to understand if you know the fundamentals really well, because a lot of the problems that you're going to solve are going to be things that are not there in Stack Overflow, things that are going to be said, like used for the first time. That's where the fundamentals really come into picture. For Google specifically, a lot of people ask me, why do you ask data structure algorithms during your interview for engineers? The reason is, if you don't know those data structures, yes, and always the second statement to why you ask, do you use it every single day? No, we don't use it every single day. Our engineers don't use data structures and algorithms every day. They're not coming and inventing new data structures. But when you're thrown up a completely new problem at your face, which you don't know how to solve, sometimes having a having an understanding of the fundamentals really helps you disassemble the problem really well. If uh, and this is a statement I've heard from one of the senior engineers at Google. He said, if you don't know a particular data structure and how it is working, when the opportunity to use that comes, you're never going to see that opportunity. So these fundamentals are something that you have to learn. You would be surprised how many engineers struggle with doing an HTTP call when they are asked to do it without a library. Many of you guys are engineers here. If you're from a computer science background, look at it. I can talk it from a computer science background, but having a clear understanding of the fundamentals is something that is absolutely necessary. And that's how you build on that. When you build on that, your foundation becoming really strong, then you can build up a career which is really skyrocketing out. Next one is control your time on the social media. I think a lot of people are pressurized by this. Luckily for me, early in my career, I didn't have there wasn't much of social media, to be very honest. The networks are slow enough. We focused on the work a lot more than we were not pressurized by being to be present in social media. But right now, I feel a lot of people are trying to uh, kind of create the social media image a lot more than acquiring the basic skills. It's basically, once you acquire a skill, is only after acquiring is that you should present it somewhere. If when you try to create it, it becomes this cycle where you feel you know it, but you can't practically put it in practice in a job or any other place. You can get the image of, oh, that guy is really good at a certain thing. You can create up that image, but when it comes to executing using those skills, it becomes a tricky thing. And companies don't really care about it. Like, I know companies, unless you're a social media marketing person for that company, they don't care whether you have that skill completely. They're looking for the primary work that you could do. And it's also a time sink. So really, this also puts a lot of pressure on people to look, oh, the other guy did that conference, he spoke at this place. Yeah, all that is nice, but having that basic skills is what helps you uh, go further. If you want to look at it, look at the top CEOs, CTOs of top companies that you know of. How many of them are social media experts actually? And how many of them put regular social media tweets, or say regularly post on Facebook and things like that, about of LinkedIn or any other social media for that matter? Would look at it, they all do their work first. And when there is a result, yes, they do post. They do post when there is a funding round. They do post when they acquire a company. Yes, those successes they post, but they really focus all the other time on building skills and executing effectively. So please focus on that one. Learn the right tools. This requires a little bit of practice. This requires a little bit of gathering some mentorship from somebody else or trying out different things. But every job has a right tool. In India, we focus a lot on your brain, a lot on people's brain power. People love to do that, and I've seen. And my examples are all going to be from computer science, because that's where I come from. So I've seen a lot of programmers and engineers who try out everything without using the tools, and they do get the results. So I'm always surprised that, hey, if they could do this in such a short period without any tools, imagine how effective they will be with the tools. But they will never try using the tools, because they see this as a differentiator. It doesn't matter whether you use the tools or whether you don't use the tools, as long as you can get the output. That's what really matters. So the shortest path to getting the output, try that. Tools really do help you get there. Soft skills, really important. Trust me, you might be the best from your batch. You're going to be technically the best person, or you're the best management person out there. But unless you have the communication skills, unless you have the leadership skills, decisiveness, flexibility, all these things that we talk about here, it becomes very difficult to make a career and be very strong and uh, grow continuously in the career. Weaknesses in these areas will start amplifying itself as you grow in your career. Like for communication, for example, nobody is going to make you a country head where you have to give external communication, or you put you into a position where you have to really work with external people where your communication skills aren't good. And these things don't come up as gaps unless they are big gaps. And I've seen nobody tells you that your communication skills are not up to the mark unless they are pretty bad. Before that, people will just, like, they'll give you, cut you the slack for it. But having a focus on fixing some of these skills, and this is not about asking others, this is about self reflection. Are you doing the right way? Are you communicating really well? Are you writing your emails effectively? Simple things like that. Are you communicating on chat very effectively? Are you writing documentation really effectively? These are all simple things, but, and it sounds very silly at times, but then those are the small things that actually lead up, and that is how people make this impression. And I can give you an example. Like I was talking to somebody the other day, a startup, and they had a new manager. And the first thing that the founder told me was that that person's documentation and communication skills are out of the world. This is the kind of person we wanted. They hired him for other things, but when they started showing that one soft skill which was really good, they have so much more value and so much more respect from this, from their team itself. So yes, do work on soft skills. Don't ignore this till it becomes a problem for you. Read more, and I cannot emphasize this more. I'm not talking about fantasy books and things like that, or Harry Potter or anything else, but whatever subject you are actually trying to be an expert on, try and read more. It's not just the subject, things around it also, so that you get a wider vision of, and reading helps you acquire a lot of things more. Today, if you go to any
Hari?
Yes, sir. I think sir's
Yeah,
internet has.
just give me like 10 seconds. He'll be back. Yeah, I think he's back. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. The
No
network
issues.
at my home
No problem. No problem, Amrit.
just dropped.
Be back to you up.
Yeah.
No issues.
Okay. I'm just going to continue from where I left. And this is more, and I feel
Amrit, you
very,
might have to share the screen again, I guess. Amrit, Amrit, are you there? Hari?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Amrit?
are you able to hear me now?
Yes, Amrit, yes.
I'm so sorry. The network is acting up a little bit.
No issues, no issues.
Are you able to see the screen?
Not yet.
Okay. I'll share it again.
He... Yes, yes.
Okay. Cool. So sorry, folks. It's just happened that the network at my end, we had a current outage and then it dropped off. So yeah. So I'll just continue from where I left. So reading more, absolutely important skill. Read more books. It helps you in more than one way. Trust me, a lot of people have shifted their reading to small and short articles, and that does give you somebody's perspective. But having a larger, wider understanding usually comes when you are actually reading a little bit around the area that you want to investigate. So, yes, read more books. I would strongly encourage that. Gives you a much more better approach towards things than just reading short articles on the internet. Handling criticism. I'm a Mallu myself. I know most of us don't like handling criticism, and most of us don't like criticism at all. There is negative criticism, and there's also constructive criticism. Uh, there is there is always a need to handle this well. A lot of people shut themselves off, thinking everything is negative, and that is not something that will help. You have to learn to take criticism and then realize what can be taken out of that for you to improve. A lot of times they say critics are your best. The critics are the ones who will help you improve the most, but you'll have to see this differently rather than shutting people off completely. Not everybody is saying things to kind of shut you off. Some of it can be used to kind of improve. So handling criticism is again another skill that we all need to kind of work on. Expertise, yes, be intentional building expertise in things like I said, the T model of learning or one of those, whatever works for you. I took the T model of learning. If there's another model that works better for you, do that. I am a very strong believer of expertise more than being a generalist. A lot of the generalist philosophy comes from the fact that it's much more easy to be employed and it's more employable. A person who's a generalist is easily employable, but then the ones with expertise are the ones who usually grow fast. And expertise needs to be built on multiple areas as you grow in your career. You can't be just an expert on one small thing and then expect yourself to be a CTO of a company. You'll have to build skills and expertise on multiple things, and that takes effort. So never take your eyes off and never be at any point of your career where you're not building expertise on something or the other. And communities, I feel this is something that a lot of developers or a lot of people are not taking enough advantage of. This is a place of like-minded people who share knowledge openly. It's a safe space for everybody to go and share their thing. I'll tell you my story. I was somebody who was terrified of coming onto a stage and speaking to public when I was in college. Uh, my biggest fear in college was, sorry, I'm just hearing that people are not able to see the screen completely. Uh, can you tell me if it is any better?
I think yeah, I think we can see the content, Amrit. I think probably the next slide we will know.
I just move to the next if you want me to show you what it is. Does this show up the whole thing?
Not exactly. I think it is
This
almost
is the
like.
last two slides, so I think we just go with it and then close
Yeah.
it off.
Okay. Sure.
So yeah, like I was telling my story, I was somebody who's terrified of speaking in public, and my biggest fear in college was that at the last semester in my last year of college was that at the last semester I have to give a presentation to about my project to my own classmates, and I was literally losing sleep over that. From that, working in these developer communities, going and talking at these conferences have helped me build my public speaking skills a lot. It's helped me gain confidence. I have made mistakes on stage. uh, i've been I've been given, what do you say, people have told me what I need to improve about and given criticism about things or constructive criticism about a lot of things, and over a period of time you improve about that, right? And now I've completely lost that fear of going to a stage and speaking to public, and I've done like umpteen number of conferences including Google I/O multiple times now, going and speaking on stage at these conferences, and there you have 800 900 people sitting in front of you. And largest I think I've spoken to was about 3000 2300 people or something in Bangalore, one of the dev fests. And that skill was something that I learned totally from working in these communities. You should participate in it, even if you don't go and speak. It's a great place to share knowledge. It's a great place to learn a lot of things for free. So do take advantage of this. Lastly, yeah, this is the last two slides like I mentioned. It's always team effort. Our education system teaches you to be very competitive, but when you come into the real world, the first thing they ask you to do is work together, and nobody succeeds alone. It's always a team sport and team effort that gets you there. So do understand that it's not something that you should take lightly. And you should appreciate that you can work with others. So that's where the soft skills and all these things come into picture. And uh, and lastly, and very very importantly, and don't forget this ever in your career, you should always have fun. You should always be able to laugh at your mistakes. You should be able to kind of have fun with your work. Don't take it overly serious. Yes, it is serious. Career is a serious thing, but then don't make that your life. Have fun and never forget to do this. That's it from me today, guys. Thank you. And if there are questions that you guys have, you want to reach out to me later. That's my Twitter handle. You can always reach out to me. That's where I am most quick to respond. LinkedIn, I do once a month because there's so many requests there. I do once or twice a month. That's all I look at LinkedIn for. But Twitter, yes, if you ask me a question, I might most probably respond very quickly.
Great.
And thank you for your patient listening. I hope it made some sense.
Thank you, Amrit. That was absolutely great. So we open the house for questions. So if you guys have any questions, then please you can put in the chat box. You can unmute and ask Amrit directly. It's almost 5:17. So any questions, anyone? Yeah. So I'll ask you a question, Hari. I'll ask you a question, Amrit. I think meanwhile we would have Uh, Amrit, how important is self-learning these days for students? I'm not just asking about engineering students, but MBA, arts and science for anybody. Like how important is self-learning?
I think it's completely important. It is definitely something that I feel a lot more people should learn about, because once you're in your career, you are going to use that skill a lot, right? So early in your career, building that up is completely necessary. And everybody has a different way of learning. I don't think people are like, you don't a lot of people think they're not good enough, sort of a way in which their marks dictate how they do in life. Not really. Everybody's really smart. A lot of people have struggled figuring out how they learn. So
Right.
when you once you put effort into figuring out what works for you, and for example, I'll tell you one thing: I don't get very long stretches of. I don't work like very long stretches. I usually do 15 minutes, take a 2-minute break, and then come back and do it, and that works better for me. Most of the
Okay.
books and things say, "Oh, you do 20 minutes of work, do a 5-minute break." The Pomodoro technique is like. Uh, you work for 20 minutes, then you take a 5-minute break, then you work for 20 minutes again. It
Right.
has never worked for me. So figuring out how it works well for you is something that you have to take. I mean, you have to like trust yourself, take your
Right.
effort to figure out. And self-learning, definitely, you are going to learn throughout your career. And the moment you stop learning is when your career really starts hitting a roadblock.
Well, what are the avenues that you suggest to the students where they can go and explore self-learning?
I think so. I'm a very strong believer of the community part of things. I think there's a lot of like-minded people there who help people out. A lot of senior folks in the industry who want to give back there. The other one, I'm not too much about certification courses as such, to be honest. But I
Okay.
believe there is enough content out there if you want to learn anything. There's Khan Academy, there is Audacity, there is Stanford's and MIT has all their courses recorded and kept. So if you want to pick up something to understand and to study, the avenues are plenty. It's all about putting your mind to it and taking the effort to do that 100 hours of course over the 3 months period. That is what people will have to really focus on. That's where time management skills, all these things come into picture. And trust me, many of us who say there's too much of college work when we were studying are doing juggling all these things when we are doing our career.
Correct. Correct.
We come out of it. I'm learning 2 courses in the side. I'm programming. I'm doing a full-time job. I'm doing a side project, and it's like in college you couldn't just handle the papers that you had. So there's
No,
always time. It's
as you
only
rightly said, we have like too many students doing online certifications just to put up on their resume on LinkedIn. And I say that without conceptual, without demonstrable skills, what is concepts good for? Because at the end
exactly.
of the day, the recruiter is not looking for a certification. He'll be looking for how well you can demonstrate your skills. Uh, Precisely for that reason, I asked you this question. Okay, I think Arjun Shana has a question. Amrit, I hope you can read the question. I saw many posts on Instagram saying that if a Google employee dies, then their spouse gets half the pay, and the children gets $1,000 till they are 18. Is this true or just rumors? All right,
I
so that
believe it's true. I don't know anybody who died on the job yet, so but, but I believe it's true.
but I mean,
Yeah,
I,
I don't intend to die on the job either. So
Arjun, probably you should invest the money that you plan to put in LIC on developing your skills and get into Google. I think the insurance is taken care of. Yeah, Harinandan. Yeah. So Amrit, Harinandan is someone who really aspires to work with Google. Because I remember interviewing this person for my internship team, and so I asked him, "What's your long-term plan?" And he said, "I want to work with Google," and he's very clear. He's in his second year BTech, NIT Calicut, a brilliant technical guy who's technically passionate also. So yeah, so you said how Google and other companies look for data structure mostly during the tests and interviews. So how important is that compared to doing projects and open source and building a developer profile, compared to just doing competitive and DSA for the technical tests and interviews? Yeah.
No, you really need both of it, to be very honest. But I don't think having one over the other will help. So if you are like a amazing competitive guy without much of open source or a developer profile, that's a negative. If you are somebody who does not have it, yeah, it sounds vague, but then reality is that you need to have a balance of both. We see a lot more people having a developer profile than having the fundamentals and the fundamentals required for the job. It's just that even if you get through it, right, it becomes extremely difficult because the people who you are competing for in your career with are going to be people who might have these skills. And then it becomes a double whammy. Learning a job at Google is very tricky because of the speed at which things are moving. I feel learning at the job is not the best approach for this company, and that's my personal opinion. If you talk to different Googlers, they might have different opinions, but my personal opinion is that. And not every job at Google requires DS and algorithm. Google is like any other company. Not everybody is coming there to program on a day-to-day basis. Every other job role is available there, like any other company would. So every project is not interesting. So landing the right thing that you want is also important. Getting in and I'll figure out is not a great way, because one thing that a lot of people, I don't know if they realize, is that usually you can't change projects for the first 2 years. So if you're hired to do something, you can't really move out of that easily. Yes, there are exceptions, but mostly they don't encourage doing that. So finding the right thing that you want to do, and what I mean to say is finding the right job where you want to work on is very important, not just getting into the company. So definitely DS, if you're looking for an engineering job as a SWE, not as an application developer, as a SWE, yes, DS and algorithms and those things are quite important, equally
Great.
important.
Great. I think, yeah. So how the opportunity to attend Google's interview came to you, sir?
So basically, I was working in the community. They knew a lot about my work like that way. I was speaking at a lot of conferences. Like I said, the Android community that I was running was doing very, very well. Then what happened is the person who was managing that program in India moved to a job in the US. So that opening came free, and he recommended me for that job. So he said he actually put my referral in. And then the recruiter actually called me saying, "Will you be interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am totally," and went in for the interviews. I was a little hesitant, to be honest, because it was a management job. I did take a while before I confirmed I will take it, but then I definitely wanted to attend the interviews and understand how I went through. It wasn't easy. Some of the interviews were difficult. Some of them did it was easy. So it was like 6 rounds, 6 rounds in the management side of things, and then when I moved to engineering, another 6 rounds of engineering interviews. And right from if you're looking at an engineering interview, right from the first interview there is coding round, and you will code without an IDE. You are usually coding on uh, a Google Doc. So the way I always put to people is Google interviews are not tough. They are not difficult. They are actually different, because a lot of people who are great programmers get put off when they're given a Google Doc to code, because their shortcuts don't work. You are not used to writing live where somebody else is seeing live. So then they fizz off. But it is intentionally done because we want people who can handle that pressure. Sometimes your skills are great, but you can't be put in a glass cage to work, right? You will be working in an environment where the pressure is there. So then can you work under that pressure? So that is another aspect that everybody looks at.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Amrit. I think, yeah. So what are the different job roles you did before reaching Google? I think she's just asking
Yeah,
for you.
I, I did
Yeah.
a few things. I did from an engineering ladder, I did the usual thing like programmer, systems designer, architect, lead architect. The different things that I might have like tried out are being a research engineer. So I was a research engineer for some time. and then from there I moved to managing a full team, and that was like a tech lead. It's called a staff engineer. It's more senior than a tech lead, but you have a little bit of team management, maybe about 30% of team management, 70% of tech direction building and things like that. And then when I joined Google, it was program management. That was completely new for me. Research engineering and program management was two skills that were like completely new for me. And but was something I could handle. To be very honest, it was not things that we couldn't handle. It was more about I was not very sure how it would turn out. Luckily for me, touchwood, it worked out okay. But I went back to engineering after a year.
Great. I think Basil is asking, how does finally a project help you land a core job offer?
Finally a project. So usually those are factors. They people would evaluate, like when you say in your resume mention that people would evaluate. Like I also hire for my team, right? So I look at what people have worked on before. Say if I'm looking for somebody who has a particular skill set, and we are looking for hiring somebody to work with, say, developers, a developer advocate for, say, artificial intelligence, you want to pick up somebody who has worked on that field before, right? Like I said, learning on the job is very, at that stress or at that pace, is very difficult. So usually we try to match those sort of things. Do a good project. Definitely don't waste your time around. That is definitely one of the factors that people will use.
Great. Monica is asking, how much time would it take to prepare for a Google interview? Any tip for the MBA students, Amrit?
Usually about 3 months is what I would recommend most people to. Like I said, it's different. It's not difficult. It's just that you got to get used to that style of interviewing. For technical guys, it has always been that coding. I mean, I've seen many people struggling with data structures and algorithms. It's not because they don't know those things. They haven't used it in their thinking. So when you suddenly ask somebody to switch their thinking, it becomes very difficult, right? And you're also in that environment where you want to perform. That pressure is there already on you, and suddenly you're thrown at a area which is not comfortable for you. That shows. So getting yourself to, like, preparing yourself that, oh, these sort of questions will come, these are the ways I should think of, and trying it out a few times, trying it out when I say mock interviews and things like that, that helps you build yourself up there.
Any
Like,
specific tips for MBA students, Amrit?
again, a lot of times thinking out of the box, there will be questions that will not have like a clear answer. How do you attack the problem becomes really, really important, because I've had questions in my initial, I'm not supposed to discuss those questions, but I can give you the general idea about it. I had questions which do not really have answers. They might not really come as like, why are they asking me this question, is the first thing that comes to your mind. But then later I realized what people were trying to judge was not what was I thinking, what are the things that I factored into trying to answer the question. They were not looking at what the answer was. They were like, how well did he attack the problem, how did he consider all the different aspects, did he take everything into account, that sort of thing, right? So yes, a little bit of preparation definitely does help. Don't try to come in to pit your brains against those interviews. Yes, some people will get to that brute force approach, but generally, a lot of people who can be hired or are good to be there miss out because they don't prepare well enough for that onslaught of different questions.
Correct.
So, but if you prepare well, I'm very sure it's not going to be very difficult for most people.
Great. I think Anand is asking the question. I think this is the most popular question in Kerala. That if you want to transition into a computer science, computer engineering profession from other core streams, yeah,
Okay.
where should one
Yeah,
begin?
so, yeah, depends on totally on what you want to kind of build your career on. A lot of people look at computer science as a way of being employable, and I don't deny that is not a good enough reason for doing it. But then there is that fundamental parts of it, like it is not about just going to a course and finishing that course. It's also having an understanding of what goes behind things. There are a few computer subjects that I feel uh, will become very important in kind of building your career towards tougher problems. Because once you get employed in a company, you will grow there, right? And that will require you to work with different skills. And a lot of people will start struggling when they don't know those fundamentals. So yes, definitely take a few courses for sure. But then if you want to get the fundamentals, like maybe do the Stanford course for computer science 101s for many of those things. They are usually not very long. Yes, it is a little boring and time consuming, but then definitely it will help you build over a period of time. Because
Great.
I, for one person, have done that, because right around 10 years of my career, I went back and did the entire course for engineering, which was available online, just so that I could refresh those concepts again, because the problems that you pitted against become harder and harder and harder. And sometimes, say, principles of programming language, or like we are working with languages and things like that at Google, right? So when you don't know those principles, talking to those engineers and giving them insights is difficult. They will not trust you, right? So you had to go back and learn it. I didn't do it for Google, but I did that for my previous job, where I really thought that I was starting to forget some of the things I learned 10 years into it. So I just went and ran through it. It took me like a real 4 months to do it. But then, yeah, if you do like 1 hour a day at the end of the day, that's like easily 30, 40 hours a week. And you do a few more on the weekend. You're easily doing 30, 40 hours a month, right? 100 hours will go in 3 months easily.
Amrit, you spoke a lot about Google and your association and you being somebody from Google. What sort of a student were you? Because when you connect the dots, backwards, what sort of a
Mhm.
student were you when you were in college? And if you so certain things would have worked for you, certain things may
Yeah.
not have worked for you. But out of those things that really worked for you, did you think that something is lacking in today's students in today's generation that you think that okay, this worked for me, but I don't see this enough in today's generation? So first of all, first question is what sort of a student were you, and then you can come to the next question.
I was definitely not the most brilliant guy in my batch. Definitely not that. I was more or less somewhere in between. I would say, yeah, not bad at my studies. To be very honest, on the subjects that I liked, I used to score pretty decently. There were subjects that I did not like, and I used to have this bad habit of ignoring them a lot till the last minute. And then, yeah, my numbers weren't great or what I could achieve for that. Uh, yeah, I mean, like, not a bad student. That's how I would put myself. Uh, yeah, it's slightly in maybe in the top 10 sort of a guy, but never in the one or two. I was never even trying to be there. I feel one thing that worked very well for me is that I went really deep into subjects that I liked. For example, at that time it was programming, and I went really deep into it. I was working with the Linux group in Cochin. And this is way back, like 2000, early 2000s, okay, or yeah, early 2000. So a lot of people did not take that initiative at that time to push that hard on things that I liked, and that has always been my nature. That one thing I like, I'll go very deep into it. But today, and that's what it worked well for me. I'm not saying that'll work well for everybody. That is what has worked well for me. Today, I feel a lot more people jump too quickly. I was not really bothered about how well my peer was doing using another thing. I really went after things that I liked. Today, a lot, because of the social media, because of a lot of this pressure, people are trying to imitate to be somebody else a lot more than trying to figure out what
Yeah.
they are good at. And that I feel, yes, it's very easy to say, but you really have to slow down to realize what you want to do, where you can be really good at, and what your aspirations are. Not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And I keep hearing this, like everybody says, oh, I'll start my own company. Not everybody's cut out for that. Like I was not one who was cut out for that. To be very honest, if I started a company, most probably would have folded by in the first year itself, because I did not have those skills. But the fact that I could recognize that was more important than blindly saying, "Hey, I am." It's just to prove to everybody I'm good enough to start something. So yes, figure out what you'd really like to do and stick to it without really worrying about the rest of the world. I feel that is really important. Today, it's very, very difficult to do it. It becomes really tricky. Because I still remember I was passionate about C. I mean, a particular programming language. I went very all out on it. Everybody else was studying Java at that time, because Java was really the cool thing at that age. But I landed my first job at IBM basically because I knew C very well, and I had that level of expertise to go join a kernel team. Whereas if I had tried to be like others and I tried something else, I might not have. I might have missed that opportunity. That's how I
True.
see it. So take your time to understand what you love to do and try less imitation of others. Try figure out
Super.
what you want to do and do that more. Yeah, it sounds more like motivation, but I think that really helps, to be honest.
I think that makes a lot of sense. You don't have to run behind what what the market says. You run behind what you are really passionate about, and then make a market out of that.
Yeah. If you're really good at something, and I will tell this example. I mean, sorry, Renjit, I'll just quickly get it.
No issues, no issues. Please go ahead.
My biggest thing for me was that I'll be the best developer around. Okay, that was the one liner that I had in my head when I joined IB. Uh, and I wanted to focus on that really. I wanted to be the best engineer they had in terms of development skills, and that was what I focusing. And at that time, I had known that the highest paid developer in Bangalore, and everybody thought it was like the Java guy and the next generation, was a COBOL developer.
Okay.
And I was like surprised. I was like, how come on an ancient technology, but he was the only one who could do that at that level. So he was charging for the hour. And I'm like, yeah. And it was a good example for me because it was really good example because I knew that if he was really good at that, then that makes sense. Because at my like way back in 2000s, early 2000, people were telling us to be generalist as much as possible because getting hired was a big thing.
Okay.
Going abroad and doing that on-site engagement was a big thing.
Yeah,
I was
correct.
somebody who did everything the wrong opposite way. I didn't go for I didn't go for an on-site for the first 5 or 6 years of my career.
Okay.
Then I transferred to Australia for a few years and then I came back. But they were like people used to ask me like, "Hey, you didn't go on site?" I'm like, "No." When I know what goes into my mind, this guy might not be good enough.
No,
My
I
name,
think going on site is still the in thing, I guess. It's still the in thing.
and every Mallu knows somebody who is abroad at that time. So your second statement is, "Oh, I know my neighbor's son. He is in California," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm here in Bangalore only."
And it puts a lot of value for you in the marriage market.
I was young, so I was not bothered about that.
No, he's been on site. He's just back from the US.
Yeah, I just.
Network. I think Mubash has a good question. I think Amrit. He's one of the Google Cloud facilitator, and he has his colleague has been training for some time, participating in code jams and always failure. Okay, that's in bracket. How do you think this will help them in building a career or getting a job in Google or similar companies?
I'm glad that you're trying. So that's the first thing. The failures doesn't matter. Trust me. Even like if I came out of college and tried a Google interview, I would most probably not go through because I never prepared for interviews. To be honest, that was my style. I was like, I will go crack it on my brute mental capacity. That was the thought process I had. All wrong. And if I tried it, it wouldn't happen. But then the fact that each time you're doing some of these things, you're going to learn a little bit about what is needed. And again, talk to people who are actually doing better than you I mean, like maybe people who are in that space, more senior folks. Then get the idea of what is required and where your gaps are. Work on those gaps. That's exactly how everybody goes around this. Trust me, most people don't get these things right the first time. So the fact that you're trying this when you're in college is great. It's a good thing.
I think Shilpa, the only request that I'll tell you, only advice that I can tell you is go practice if you want to become an expert from basic skills. And I think you need to be consistent as well. I think regardless of any field that you are in.
Pick an area that you want to be an expert at. Expert at computer science never works. Expert at programming never works. Expert in Android never works. You really need to pick the area. Like when I went for the GDE program, the first question in the GDE program, the Google Developer Expert program, was what is the area of specialization you want us to ask questions in? And I said for what I selected was image processing in Android. And the guy who wrote the basic code in the Android source code was the guy who was interviewing me for that. So you can't really you can't really bluff them anyway. And the questions he asked me were not like, how do you think you can do that? He said, what is the first question? What are the gaps in what we have done so far? So they want you to analyze. So the whole point is, as you gain expertise, it becomes like a cone. You are going to narrow your focus out a lot. Initially, you will go really wide. The basic skills will be really wide. And as you become more and more expert, you start becoming like really good at one area of it. If you try to make it like go up this way, you're going to just take too much time and you're going to remain at the average skill level for most things. You really will have to like focus out. And my understanding or my way of thinking is that as you grow in that order, you start realizing certain things you like and certain things you don't like. and you start focusing on those things which you want to build a career in. That's how you go do it.
Great.
So that's something definitely you should try to focus your attention towards. As you grow up in the order and skills, you have to focus on smaller things and become more of an expert in those. And it will have to change. You have to build expertise on multiple things over a career. I started with kernel development, then I moved to telecom, then I moved to Android OS engineering, to different OS engineering now. So it keeps changing. In a career which is spanning 10, 30, like 30, 35 years, you will at least go through 5 to 6 technologies where you need to be expert if you're in technology. If you're an MBA or another skill set, yes, you will deal with different problems in these areas of career.
Super. Okay, Amrit, the time is already 5:42, so I wouldn't hold you here for too long.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think Shilpa, you can always touch base with Amrit on Twitter, as he rightly said. Divya Lakshmi, I think you can also do the same. And Amrit, how difficult was it to convince yourself to come on Zoom despite being an employee of Google?
No, it is. Okay, the backstory is that we can't use Zoom for our official things. That's out of it. So I
Okay.
just thought that I could log into my personal account and then log into the web. I can't install the Zoom software on our system. That's the only reason.
No, because that's the first question my team asked. Like, would he agree to do it on Zoom? So I was
We
like,
can do it, but I can't do it from my official account. So I can't log into my official browser. I mean,
okay,
with my official account and then log in from there. We'll start getting warnings on that.
great. And I remember watching this interview by one of the marketing directors of Apple. So towards the end of his interview, he said, on papers, these companies might look very fascinating and enticing, but at the end of the day, what we do is just like what any other employee would do in an office. Uh,
Exactly.
and I think how true is that, Amrit? I mean, is it?
Very true. It's very true. I would say it's you have to treat this as just another job. Yes, it's very aspirational. Certain things are very aspirational. But then once you come in there, you'll realize the job is nearly the same. It's just that you are doing in a different office in a different environment. That's about it. In Google, always the free food is there, which is like in
Okay.
lockdown, nobody's getting. So, but the free food factor does help. I put on my pounds for that. But we even have something called Google 15. Like in the initial 3 months of joining Google, you'll put on 15 pounds if you're not. So that's called the Google 15
Okay.
because of all the free food that you get. But yeah, jokes aside, it's like any other job. That's why I was initially telling that you have to also figure out the right job for you in a company, because a, not a great fit job at Google is worse than a great fit at a much smaller company which might not have the same reputation, because that's what you're going to thrive on and you're going to put your best work out there, right? So always pick something which is very very aligned to what you want to do in life, what you want to build a career in. So jumping into a company just because of the company's reputation doesn't help, because like any other job, there are uninteresting engineering jobs, there are very very fascinating things, there is research. What we see usually in the videos and things like that are always a research outcome. And so it's very fascinating. Oh, this is next generation. No, but very few people are working on their AI models. Most people are not. So you have to realize that aspect.
Correct. Correct. And I think throughout our conversation, right from day one when I met you for the event, uh, you have been a strong advocate of communities, community building, and networking and exchange of ideas. And so I don't see our academic system inculcating the idea of community building and idea exchange and knowledge sharing in our students. So if you could just touch upon that one particular point, like as an engineering BTech second year or third year student, what are the communities that they could be part of, where they can get information about unicorn companies like Google?
So, see, from a community's perspective, one of the things our education system does is that we know to compete exceptionally well with each other, and that becomes a big, like a big gap when we hire the rank one guy from a company versus the rank 20 or 50 from a college. Like, so there's 100 people, the 50 guy really works with everybody to kind of move further,
Correct.
whereas the first guy works alone. Now, yes, we are all competing against each other, no doubt. We are all competitive by nature. But what happens in the real world is the moment you join a company, the first thing you're asked is to work with the guy who you competed against work together. And that
Okay.
is a big culture shock. So you really don't want to be adjusting to this when you're working, because it will show up in your work over a period of time. Because you'll have to take the extra effort to do that. That's where community and things like that, where you openly share information, where you openly communicate with people, you build your communication skills matter. A couple of things. There's Google developer groups, that's from Google. There is also other communities like Facebook groups and Facebook developer groups. And I know that a lot of developer groups, but then there are also multiple things on Meetup based on interest. My point is just interact with people, build a network. You will automatically start gravitating towards people who are like-minded, and then you start building that network, and that network is really, really important. And that's not for a referral sort of a thing. It's just that when you network with people with similar thought process, you will, but at the same time they will you'll also hear a lot of different ideas, and that will influence your thinking. You're not going to go with the, what is it, like the horse with the blinds on it. You are going to start being open to other questions and other opinions, and how to deal with that, how to incorporate that into your thinking. Those sort of things will be, are like skills you can learn for free without spending a dime,
Right.
but taking the effort.
ಬೇರೆಯವರತ್ರ
Because
ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಬೇರೆಯವರ ಹತ್ರ ಹೇಳಿ, ಅವರು ನಂಗೆ ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳುವಾಗ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ, ನಂಗೆ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ, ಬೇರೆಯವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಹೇಳಿ ಹಾಗೆ ಅವರದ್ದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹಾಗೆ ಬೇರೆಯವ್ರ
The perils of being on. Okay, I think yeah. So sorry. Okay, I think Amrita. I think I muted everybody. I guess. Okay, fine, great.
I want me to myself, yeah.
Yeah, you're great. So Amrita, thank you so much, Amrita. Thanks for your time. It's been a pleasure listening to you, and thank you so much for accepting the invite. Hope to catch up with you sometime in Bangalore once the lockdown is lifted, and I hope the lockdown is treating you well.
I'm getting a little bit of cabin fever, but I'm okay.
Okay.
Doing with it now. But like I
Yeah.
said, I'm not trying. One thing I really want to tell the listeners here today is that I'm not trying to motivate you. I'm just telling you some things that I feel will work, or has worked for me. Uh, what you should do is try some of these things, and definitely tune it to what works best for you. You should disregard what doesn't work for you. You should refine things that are working for you, and you should adjust things that are partly working for you. So please do it that way, and I feel that'll help you take a little bit. And if you want to know more, if you there are more questions, please feel to reach out on Twitter, and I'm more than happy to share some time with you folks.
Okay.
I'm
Thank
happy.
you. Happy Onam. Yeah. Happy Onam to you and your family.
Not much about Onam this time, but still, we're gonna celebrate in a way we can.
Yeah, the best. That's what I've been telling my kids, that whatever limitations that you have, how much ever restricted that you are, I think you need to bring out the best that is possible out of the situation.
Celebrate
That
everything.
may not, yeah, that may not be the best, but it could definitely bring out the best out of the situation that you are in. So I think I'm also going to do the same with Ona and Mubash. Thank you. I think Mubash has got a great remark for you, Amrit. The session was great.
Thank you.
Lakshmi Twitter account, I think he has.
I will put it on the chat again so that everybody gets it.
Yeah. So Nitin, thank you. Krishnaja, thank you. Thanks everyone. Yeah. So there it goes. Divya Lakshmi, Amrit's Twitter ID is there. A lot of people are wishing you a happy Onam, Amrit.
Yeah,
So,
everyone. My wishes to everybody, not just to Renjit here. I can't give you all of you folks, but yeah, everybody have a great Onam. Stay safe and healthy. Don't risk unnecessarily.
Shilpa, just a point. Education without skill is more or less like internet without Google. So that's the best I can say. That's the best wind-up line. So thank you, Amrit. Take care of yourself and stay safe. Regards to everyone at home. Hope to catch up with you sometime very soon. Thank you. Thanks for being part of iSchool Rhapsody.
Bye, everyone.